Hello ladies and gentlemen, okay, we're back with some more science fiction, some vintage science fiction for you. I've been buying some job lots off eBay and good for two reasons. One, they only worked out about £1 each, and secondly, quite a few of them are what I would term proper vintage from the 1960s and 70s. So yeah, I'll be keeping my eye open for a few. The only problem is you've got to be careful because you can end up with a lot of doubles. So you've got to look at the pictures very carefully. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably be picking up a few every now and then. But I've got something to show you today. I'll dispense with any preamble because I've got a few to get through and I've only got 30 minutes to do it. That's when my pad decides no more. Okay, right. Let's dive straight in. Right. Andre Norton, Dragon Magic. Very prolific authoress during the 60s, 70s. I've not read any of her stuff, so I can't comment, but I don't think it would be for me. That one's first American paperback from 1973. Okay, John Brunner. Now, John Brunner did a lot of pot boilers before he became famous with books like The Sheep Look Up and Shockwave Rider. This is one of his earlier efforts, although this book is Dramaturgies of Yan, New English Library book, and it's a bit later. This one's a second paperback from 1979. Okay, now this one has a very, very tenuous science fiction connection. It does say science fiction on the spine there. Fred Saberhagen has written a lot of science fiction, but as I say, it's got a tenuous connection. But I've put it with the science fiction anyway, and that's a first stage printing, first paperback from 1979. Old friend of the family. Right, Larry Niven. He wrote quite a lot of these type of books, sort of fantasy stroke science fiction books. Before, he also did a lot of hard science fiction as well, strangely, but yeah, he seemed to favour these type of books. Magic Goes Away. I've not read any of this stuff, but that actually is a first English, a true first printing, because there's no hardback as far as I can see. And that one is an Orbit book from 1982, a little bit later, so nice cover there. Looks like Peter Jones. Excuse me, got a frog. I'll take a drink, might help. Right, now sometimes, as I say, I had a lot of these books way back in the past. So some books covers stick in your memory, and that one does. The Humanoids, Jack Williams, that's the Lancer, American, of course. It doesn't have any sort of date inside, but I would imagine it's mid-70s, possibly late 60s. But there's no date for me to go by. Humanoids. Here's another nice Peter Jones cover. Ian Watson, Death Hunters. I don't think I've read any Ian Watson, although he was quite prolific in the 80s, 70s maybe. That's Death Hunters. That's a Corgi, and it hails from 1982 and is the first paperback. Okay, I remember this one from way back in the day. Gods for Tomorrow. This is an anthology by Tandem Books. I used to read a lot of this stuff, so I remember it very well. Edited by Hans Stefan Sanderson, and this hails from first printing 1967. So that's the first British paperback. Now this looks like a 1950s cover, but it isn't. One of those cheesy covers. It doesn't even look like science fiction, but it is, apparently, by Carl Siegfried Badger books. I remember them very fondly from the good old days. I don't think this one has a date in either. No, it doesn't. So, but I don't think it's from the 50s. I think it's more 60s. Certainly prior to 70 because it's got the 2 and 6pence there. Okay, Bob Shaw, another quite prolific author. Shadow of Heaven, quite a nice cover. This one is a New English Library book again, and it's printed, reprinted October 1970, so that's a second edition. Okay. Another author I've never read, Proteus Unbound by Charles Sheffield. It's another New English Library edition, very nice condition. This looks like a later one to me, possibly 80, yeah. Yeah, 89. But it's a first British paperback. Right. Yeah, I remember seeing these all over in the latter days of my collecting. Patrick Tilley's Amtrak Wars. I think there are a few of these. That's by Orbit Books, and I would imagine it's 80s. Quick looky. Yeah, reprinted 1998, so that's a later version of that particular book. Good old E.C. Tubb. There's a man who liked his pot boilers, very prolific back in the day, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And that particular one is an Arrow book, and it was published in 1973, and is the first UK paperback. There's another one that I remember from back in the day. I remember a lot of the American books because I used to have a lot myself. Time Out for Tomorrow. I actually have this in an English printing, but I swapped it over for this one. It's another anthology. No, it's a novel, this one. And it's a Valentines book, and it's doesn't give you a date, but I would imagine it's an original publication, not a reprint, it says. I would guess around 65, 6, judging by the cover. Okay, move a bit forward. Right, now it's funny how you remember some awful covers. I remember that one, Throwbacks by Roger Sarek. It says a science fantasy, so probably wouldn't appeal to me, but not in the best of condition, but it's an American Belmont book, and it's dated first paperback, November 1969. Okay, now these are the ones that I'm going after, door books, because I had a lot of these. Well, I had them all up to, I don't know, at least sort of 250, I would think, first 250. and they're all numbered, as you can see there, so you can follow whether you got a complete set or not. And that was one by Ron Goulart, Space Hawk Inc., another prolific author. All Door books, I think, are first paperbacks, and that was 1974. At least all the early ones are first paperback. Okay. Yeah, it's one of these old American pot boilers, the Doomsday Planet, Harl Vincent. All of these are probably nom-de-plumed, you know, pseudonyms. That particular one is second printing from 1968. So it doesn't even have the decency to be a first edition. Right. James White, that's a collection of 4 stories. I'm not familiar with James White's. That is a Corgi with a printing date of, publication date of 1968, first paperback, first UK paperback. Right, it's one of these awful old books with a terrible cover. One that, you used to see them around all the time, but I don't know if anybody actually ever read them. The Red Planet, somebody put a lot of thought into that, by Russ Winterbottom, I remember him. And this is by Priory Books. Not familiar, but it's a UK edition, and it was published, doesn't say, but I would imagine 1960 odd. But yeah, horrible looking thing. That's there you go. Okay, now we have another American Ace edition, the Monadic Universe by Georgesville. I remember the guy from way back, but I've never actually read anything by him. As I say, it's an American Ace, and it was printed in 1977. First American paperback. Okay, and next up we have one of those nice little Ace volumes, smaller than all the other books. You can always identify it by the number. Universe Against Her by James Schmitz. There again, another author that I've seen quite a few of his books, never read any, and that is the first printing from 1964. Something about these old Ace books that I like. The trouble is they look odd in your bookshelf because they're, as I say, they're a bit smaller than your normal. Here's one of them, one of these awful series that used to get printed in the 70s. Time Quest by William Tedford, number 2. Hydra is red, apparently. It's an American edition, and called a leisure book, apparently, in 1981. A little bit later than I thought. Used to see them around all the time. Right, Roger Zelazny, Dying Little Bar. I used to have a lot of Zelazny's books, but a few of them went. I kept a few. And that is That's a Corgi Edition, and it was published in 1977 and looks to be a first UK paperback. Okay, another one of those horrible books with a 1950s vibe. I'm saying horrible, I mean way back then this was all good stuff. All this space opera adventure. The Forgotten Race by, who is it? Julius Newton, I've never heard of them. It's a digit book, English, in 1963, so that'll be a proper first edition. And Harry Turtledove, I've heard of this guy, but it's the first book I've come across. It says a novel of cross-time traffic. It's a tour book, which makes it American. And it hails from, it's a much later book, first mass market edition 2007, so I don't know what that quite means. But obviously it's not a first printing in any shape or form. Again, Sydney Van Scoyock, another name I'm familiar with but never read any of his stuff. Saw a review of this actually, and it was quite complimentary to it. And it's an English book, I would imagine, from the late 70s. So looky here, oh no, a lot later, 1987. And it looks to be a proper first edition. Okay, and we've got good old, this is the novel that Buck Rogers was based on, Philip Francis Nolan, Armageddon 2419 AD. This is another one of his book. It's a remainder, as you can see there, from the mark, but in quite nice condition. And it doesn't give you much information, but it says 1962, but I think that particular printing is a lot later. Right, one more, Bring the Jubilee. This book was quite well thought of, as I remember. I think it's an alternate timeline thing. And it dates from 1965, and it's the first UK paperback. Interesting. Oh, and then another one is horrible, horrible, horrible. That's horrible in every sense of the word. And the cover, the stars came down, and the paper is printed on. It's pretty dire as well, as you can see. But it's this edition published 1972. I'll skip round that one very quickly. Okay, there's the last of the little pile. I think we'll manage to get through them all okay. Right, My Father Immortal by Michael D. Weaver. Not familiar, absolutely horrible cover. There's no saving graces, that one. It's an Avon Nova book, so that'll be American, from 1991, first. Yep, first paperback. If the book's as bad as the cover, I won't be bothering. Yeah, another one I remember. They used to see this one all over the place for some reason. Doomsday Brain by Porterbury. Another tandem book. I'm guessing late 60s. Have a look. Yeah, 68. First UK paperback. Okay. Right. Future for Sale by Richard Saxon. Another horrible artwork. Really, these pot-boily books, not like the equivalent of Mills and Boon, I suppose. They really didn't bother going all out with any good artwork. Richard Saxon, I've heard of. I think we just saw one of his books. They look just as horrible. And that is 1964. Stay there as far as I'm concerned. Right, this is more of a fantasy. Paula Williams, A Dome in the Forest. It says fantasy. I mean, it looks more like a historical novel to me, but it says fantasy, so I shall have to believe them. No, that's a late one, 1986. And it seems to be a proper first printing UK from Orbit Books. Okay, here's an author that I used to like back in the day, Robert Sheckley. I used to have this book, I used to have an English edition of it. This is Dell, American. I've been looking at that cover and it gets in your head after a time because you can look at it from a lot of different ways. Yeah, Robert Sheckley was a good author. He used to do not out and out comedy, but there used to be a lot of humour in his stories, And that is first American paperback, January 1967. Robert Sheckley. Right, there was a whole series of these with very similar covers. I think I've probably shown you 2 or 3 in the past. That's the Long Arm of Gil Hamilton. It's 3 novelettes, but it's all based around this Gil Hamilton character. That is a Del Rey book, which was part of the Valentine publications. Quite nice. They're quite nice books. They're very shiny and look very nice. This particular one was a 3rd printing from 1978. Okay, now I'd forgotten about these, but laser books. Now there was a ton of these published way back. I forget when that was, probably 70s, I would imagine. American. I'll have a look in a minute, but yeah, I mean they're covers by Kelly Freas, who I love as an artist, but all the covers are a bit lackluster now. That this face in the corner, sort of like a written by numbers and drawn by numbers. The cover. I think I tried to read one of them once and it was almost unreadable. But I was pleased to get one back, just to bring back some memories. That particular one was 1976. But just a lot of pot-boiler stuff, of no literary merit that I can remember anyway. Okay, I've got a couple of Michael Moorcocks. I've got these in American editions, but... I've got these in Lancer editions, I think it is. but anything of Moorcock's I tend to keep. And that one is an ace publication because a lot of these books were different. They were re-edited and re-edited again, so you never know what particular edition you have. So that's why I tend to keep them. But this is the first published in the USA, 1968. Door edition revised, which I've shown you, 77, and then this is the Ace edition, presumably, of the Door edition, 1990. But yeah, I thought it worth keeping for £1. Same with this one, Bull and the Spear. I've got the American version of that. But these quartet books are quite collectible in their own right, because Philip Jose Farmer did a couple of famous novels for quartet, and yeah, they're worth hanging on to. There again, this is probably a different edition to the one I have. This particular one is from 1973. First paperback. First UK paperback. Right, yeah, I've heard of this lady, Joan Vinge. Well, it's not pronounced Vinge, but I forget how you pronounce it. But she's the wife of Werner Vinge, who's another science fiction author. Fireship, quite a nice cover. This is from Dell books. It'll be a later one, I assume, because Dell always look different when I collected them, and this particular one is the first US paperback from 1978. And then Slater's Planet by Harrison Moore. Pinnacle books, not really familiar with Pinnacle books. I don't even know if they're English or American. It's the first printing from April 71 anyway, and it's American. So it's the first American paperback. Not very interesting. Yeah, when I saw this, I assumed it was a hard science book about black holes, but it isn't. Black holes and bug-eyed monsters. It's an anthology. And it hails from 1977 by the look of it. And another Kelly Freas cover, apparently. Interesting. And come down to the last couple here. John Wyndham, The Seeds of Time. That's one of the few John Wyndham books I haven't got. So I was pleased to get my hands on that one. We all know Day of the Triffids and Midwich Cuckoos. That was another one of his science fiction novels. John Wyndham, that is Penguin, but it's a later printing from, that's about the 7th printing, that one, from 66. And last but not least, what would a science fiction collection be without, ta-da, William Shatner's Tech Vengeance. Tech War was the first one, was it? Yeah, I was quite amused when I got that one. And I suppose William Shatner actually writes them, but interesting nevertheless. And this particular volume is from 1993. Looks like a first paperback, and then last but not least, one of the classics, I suppose. Master of the World, Jules Verne. Debatable whether it's science fiction or not, but I think most people would argue that it is. Not familiar with Jules Verne, I've never read any Okay, folks, so that's it. I managed to squeeze that in just on the 30-minute mark. So I shall be back very soon with another bunch of those. So if you're into it, good luck. If you're not, hard luck. Sorry, away it goes. Okay, I will see you very soon. Bye-bye now.